Let's pause. So everything you're saying is good. I need it here though. And I just want you to like literally talk like you're talking to me. When I'm asking you these questions, I'm asking you. I'm just pulling what's in you out. And so, because when you talk to me, it's like, oh, Riley, boom. And it's, it's not, here's the definition. Let's just have our conversation.
Okay.
So let's do it again. Welcome back to Rawthentic Radio with Eric and Riley, which we still have to change. Shelly, our producer, is working on that.
Excuse me.
As soon as possible with Riley and Eric. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining us for episode 2, where we talk about the importance of being raw and authentic.
With Eric and Riley.
With Riley and Eric. Where we talk about the importance of being raw and authentic in your faith and in your relationships. And our first episode was fun.
Yep.
We just to revamp kind of what we talked about. We talked about the what does it mean to be authentic, and just some of the dangers that come because there's no place for that in a lot of faith circles. And the overall thought is this: that inside of every one of us is this grand desire to be real.
And I think we also just invite people to start considering what can they do.
Yes.
Because this is not something that's top down.
No, totally.
It's a personal choice of each individual.
And we have decisions that we can make that add to it. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Yep. So let's dive right into it. How do we cultivate a culture of authenticity in our relationships and in our faith circles?
You go first.
Okay. Well, I'll just say for me, I learned that I can't be authentic about a sexual issue or one of the big quote unquote sins, as you talked about, if I'm not living it out in my relationships on a minuscule way. And I found in my own life that I was afraid to be authentic about silly things. And there might be some of you out there who struggle with this too, but I'm by nature.
What are some examples?
Well, I was a people pleaser, and I just wanted everybody to just, I didn't want to stir the waters. God forbid somebody be upset with me. And so,
or that you would lose your golden boy status.
Well,
oh my God.
That's what you thought I had. That's gone.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, for me, it was the little things. Like I was afraid to tell people no. And I just thought about like, even on weekends. Okay. So I worked in ministry and I would have Friday, Saturday off. Well, there was such a demand and a pull on me for my time that I didn't want to let anybody down, but I realized I wasn't living my own life. I wasn't doing things that I enjoyed and that filled me. So the key is this: if I can't live authentic in those small ways, there's no way in God's green earth that I'm going to be real about a lust issue or one of these big quote unquote sins that we talk about.
Right.
And so I had to start dismantling my inner people pleaser from the top or from the bottom down or from the bottom up. Yeah. I'm directionally challenged. From the bottom up, and begin to work on like, so what is it in me that struggles with people being upset or me not being able to be truthful about what my desires are? And when I began that, it just began to peel the layers back. And I realized that was just the beginning.
I think your decision to do that is really indicative of how do you actually create a authentic faith culture overall. And that's just being willing to turn around and look at yourself.
Yeah.
Last year I had a major learning experience in May.
Okay.
And one of my friends, Damian Giacchino, said, all of your life, because I've spent a lot of time discipling people, doing a lot of spiritual fathering, all of your life, I think you've studied everybody else's life and worked really hard on their lives. I don't think you've ever valued yourself enough to study yourself.
Yeah.
And so that began exactly what you're talking about, whole different area. But it's like, why am I so committed to everyone else? And I have no respect, which I wouldn't have called it respect. I would have called it probably humility, or, this is my calling.
Yeah.
Rather than digging down and realizing, I actually, not only do I have no respect, when I really start shining, I always make sure to step back out of the spotlight, because that makes me really nervous.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's exactly what you just said. I was in charge of the steering wheel for a whole congregation of people, but somewhere in the midst of that, I lost the steering wheel to my own life. Yep. And because of that, because I never looked at myself internally, and that's humble, right? That's doing the work of the Lord. Pick up your cross. Yeah, picking up your cross doesn't mean dropping your passions and who you are in the midst of it.
Right.
And I had to realize that I had some internal things I had to be honest about and look into. And it's really hard. I found it's really hard to have a vision for your life when you have no vision of yourself. Yep. It's really hard to find out what your desires are when you don't understand, you don't take a mirror into your own heart. And so for me, stepping into or creating a authentic culture started with the culture of my own heart. Yep. And getting to a place that where I lay my head down at night, I want to know. I want to know that I know that I know that I lived my life, and that did I honor the Lord? Absolutely. But that I was being true to me.
Yeah. And taking it to a level beyond ministry.
Yes.
Because I think when you said the steering wheel of your own life, it's kind of like driver's education for yourself.
Yeah.
And so we take it down to how do you do all these parallel parking? How do you do a right turn? How do I, in my personal life, make choices that actually take me to a different level?
Yeah.
In my ministry life.
Yes.
Because we see all the time, people are superstars in ministry, and then we have a blowout.
Yeah.
And I've had more than one of those.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until we began, even in our relationship, what we've shared the last year has been really powerful in this, and has given us the confidence to start talking about it more. Yeah.
And a big part of that was just because of how you cultivate that in relationships.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is, for you, maybe you can shed some light on that. Same question back to you. How do you cultivate that in relationships and in organizations as a whole? How do we begin that? How have you pulled that out of people? How did you learn that in yourself?
I think for myself, it was finding a way to connect to my own inner person and to share honestly with the people that I was closest to, and to tell them what's really going on below my spiritual father label, below my apostolic leader or epic life leader.
Yeah.
All of those labels or roles that we have, it's digging down to who am I at the core of myself, and letting that person be known.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I was wondering is, like, what's the danger of our lack of authenticity? Like, what becomes the danger in our lives of that, and even in our organizations and faith circles?
Yeah. I think for myself and just what I've observed, because I've been in church life all my life.
Yeah.
It's so easy to live what looks like a big life and be so small on the inside. Wow. The older that you get, when you're my age, there are not a ton of people that I meet that are my age that are vibrating with life.
Can you go into that really quick? You just said, and I think it was super powerful, on the outside, it looks like you have a big life, but on the inside, you're remaining super small.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
I life coach, and I have some friends and some people who are in their 40s and 50s, and it's very interesting to me to observe a lot of people my age, they're focused on their golf handicap and their 401k and their houses and their cars, but their lives are a mess.
Yeah.
And if a lot of times, because I'm fairly open about my own past, people will talk to me about their lives because they feel safe because I'm open.
Yeah.
And so they'll tell me their real life, and their real life is so lonely.
Wow.
So I've literally had clients tell me, I don't want to grow beyond this point because this is my third marriage and I do not want to do anything to unsettle the waters because this is the best relationship I've had so far.
Yeah.
And so it's just looking at that and going, no, I want to get up in the morning, love myself. And the mornings I don't love myself, know that I don't love myself and why.
Yeah.
And be like the people I'm most connected to at the core of my life, my inner circle. I don't want to have any secrets from any of them. I have 6 people in my inner circle that I do not have secrets from. And I have many more people in the next circle, which is lifetime friends for me.
Wow.
Where they know my life, my ups, my downs. I am known by them.
Yes.
And that I think is, that's really the power of having a authentic life.
Yeah.
And it's a brutal choice.
It is.
There are so many days that I have wanted to just lay down and die, or I don't want to make this public.
Yeah.
But the isolation is not worth it. And I see too many people who are even big name leaders, and you listen to them, and we all think that other people can't figure us out.
Yeah.
But people just sit and watch, chewing their popcorn.
Yep.
And they're like, I see you.
Yep. Yep.
And you're my check mark. I made church today and I'm out.
Yeah. Yep. And I think we've got to get to a place where we understand that the enemy is not afraid of our success, but he does fear our freedom.
Oh yeah.
So he's completely fine with you walking around, you make your money, you have the influence you have, just as long as you stay small on the inside.
Right.
And you touched on something that was super vital for me. And I think ultimately it's the relationships that we cultivate that will play out in the life that we cultivate, or that will produce the life that we cultivate. So if our relationships are hidden, and there's things hidden in all of these friendships, quote unquote, with our best friends who probably know little of anything that's going on in your life,
right,
your life's going to follow suit.
Right.
And so I think it's important for us to begin to be super purposeful with our relationships and just look at them honestly. And what we've been walking in is what we call being known. And this is what has totally transformed my life. Is I was reading a book. It's called Soul Care by Rob Weimer, Weimer, Rob Weimer. And he said something that set me free. He said in his journey, he reached a place where he decided, I refuse to die with a secret. And the thought of that both scared me and set me free.
Yep.
I will refuse to die with a secret. Wow. And from that moment on, I remember calling you and just being like, hey, I got to be real. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with something. And here it is. I can't keep secrets anymore. I'm ready to be free. And you do that well. You invite that well. You live it. But we've got to be known.
Well, that response that you made, all of us come to those silent points in our lives where we look at things, whether other people know it or not, and we know I should not keep this to myself.
Yeah.
Or you'll look in the mirror that you can't get away from one day, and you're like, I am going to be so lucky if nobody finds out about this.
Yeah.
But it's being courageous enough and proactive enough to go in and tell people, and you can't tell everyone.
No.
I had somebody that I respected tell me, I think you tell the people that you disciple or your spiritual sons and daughters, you tell them too much.
Yeah.
And I thought about that for the last probably year. And I just looked at their life and my life, and I understand why they would say that.
Yeah.
Because they come from a different culture than I come from. But the power, I've had so many of my sons and daughters pick up and fight hard because I'm like, this is the way you do it.
Yeah.
Here's what happened to me. Here's the choices that I made. Learn from my choices.
Yeah.
And do this.
Yeah.
And you also, when you bring that to the table, just like you did, you had a choice at that point. When you read that,
Yeah.
you had a choice to either go on by or else highlight it, take some action on it,
Yeah.
do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think we're all waiting. It is true that you have to have a leader that, if you want to be part of a faith group, whatever kind that is today, because
Yeah.
it really,
So many different functions.
yeah. And what we've always known as church, that's shifting and changing.
Yeah.
I don't think that how we've always done church is even going to be how we do church in the future. But you have to come to the point where you're not waiting for a leader to decide to be authentic.
Yeah.
And to lead you in that. You got to do it for yourself.
Yes. And I think what basically for me, it's like there's these big things we keep talking about, these big issues that we have to choose to be known by.
Yeah.
But from that point on, then it becomes the smaller things that help us maintain a level of being known and a level of authenticity. So I could come to you with this thing that I'm struggling with because I know, hey, I can't live with this, and I give it to you.
Right.
But the way that that's maintained is then in the smaller. So I can wake up one day and just feel cloudy in my head because I didn't spend enough time by myself. I didn't, and that's something that I need. And if I'm cloudy in my head, what starts to happen is I just kind of get lost on the inside of myself, and then it becomes easy for me to act out. Well,
Right.
So what's the key to that? It's choosing to be known right away and text some of those inner circle people and just say, hey, just so you know, my mind's super cloudy today. Would you just pray for me? I'm just choosing to be known. And then my friends, what do? They check in on me throughout the
Right.
day. How you doing with that? Do you need to meet for coffee? You want to
Right.
hang out? Want to FaceTime? People don't do friendships like that.
Well, and I think, it'd be important to say, when you said I act out, what people wait for, they wait for something to shove them into the limelight
Yeah.
because of their blunder is so despicable in someone's definition or so egregious that they're shoved into the limelight and then they choose to be known.
Yeah.
And we actually have it backwards. It's like, if I lie, if I exaggerate,
Yep.
if I overeat, those are all acting out.
Yes.
When I have had seasons in my life where I'm super good on any sexual issue that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And interestingly, then I would see, oh, it's actually not just in that area. I'm eating more than I need to be eating.
Yeah.
But that's not something like,
We don't talk about gluttony.
oh, absolutely not. I told my pastor 20 years ago, it was Rick Cole, and he was a very good friend. He's invested a lot in my life.
Yeah.
And I told him 20 years ago, dude, if you would just preach about gluttony, revival would sweep your church. But
so true.
nobody wants to preach about that because so many of us in church are overweight.
Yeah.
But hey, that's just no big deal because, and I'm like, seriously? As
Yeah.
somebody who deals with sexual acting out,
Yeah.
I'm like, are you crazy?
Yeah. Well, but stop right there because that's the tension that so many people have walking into a faith journey or walking, people in culture in today's world have a hard time coming forward with some of these things because it's like, wait. Guaranteed you've got a secret porn addiction or guaranteed, I can see you. You struggle with gluttony, bro. So you're going to come against same sex?
Well, 20 years ago, I lived in Virginia, and that was when I began to see God do some powerful breakthrough.
Yeah.
And it would always annoy me no end because the pastor, the evangelists, I actually went to revival services for 2 years, 5 nights a week. So powerful. But the dude was chunky.
Yeah.
Like extra chunky. And so they would have altar calls for all the people who deal with smoking. I mean, it was even
The big stuff, drug addiction.
totally, all you sexual addicts, alcoholics. And I'd be like, and could you just have an altar call one time for most of the church?
Yes. It's so true because, but leaders, myself at one point included, only talk about what we went through, but not what we're going through.
Totally.
And people need to hear leaders say, here's my struggle. Is there a balance where I can still be respectful and still, honor my position? Yes. I think that there's a way to do it, but not speaking about any of it is not helpful for anybody.
No.
And so I think people are just craving leadership. They're craving influencers around the world who are just going to be real about where they're at. And then maybe that will give an invitation for them to come out and be honest about their struggles. But
there's a difference between history and testimony.
That's good.
I think it was in 2002. My mom died. Several significant relationships in my life here in town ended or shifted. And I went back to acting out sexually. And so I was coming home one night on a Saturday night, and I was passing 65th Street on 50. I'll never forget it. And I heard this voice, and it was like, if you can never stop doing this, I'm always going to love you.
Wow.
And it still rocks me today. And I was so hard. I wanted to be so hard because I wanted to be so disconnected from all the pain I was feeling. And I said, I don't know who the hell that is.
Wow.
And the Holy Spirit goes, you know my voice. And so I was, and then he repeated it. If you can never find it in your will to stop this, I'm always going to love you.
Wow.
And so I was sharing that with Chad Everett, who's a close friend of mine for the last 20 years. And he said, Eric, you need to start giving your testimony. And I said, I will. In about 2 years when I get things more cleaned up. And Chad's like, no. He said, that's actually history. A testimony is, what is God doing right now?
Wow.
And I've never forgotten that. When we did Epic Life, we had all kinds of powerful testimonies. I gave my testimony. We had one young woman who gave a testimony of how she contracted HPV. Wow. And she gave her testimony while she was engaged, I believe. How she had contracted HPV, and then God healed her during one of our services. We had people talk about molestations, cutting, all kind. People would get up before every service and give a testimony that was current, real. This is what God's doing. And we saw the miraculous happen. We saw amazing things where people would come forward like, this is what's going on in my life. Yeah. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And we didn't always have all the answers. But we created a culture where you were safe to bring up anything.
Yeah, that's so important.
So powerful.
Because testimonies today, what do they sound like?
Yeah.
I was saved when I was 7. Mm-hmm. And
I've served Jesus all these years.
And then I found my identity, and I've never been the same since.
Right.
Okay. Come on now.
What is in there that I can actually reach out and take a hold of?
What's redemptive for me?
Right.
And it's not even about fabricating a testimony to, it's not about that. It's about being real with your life.
You are human. Yes. What are you dealing with?
People will connect with your vulnerability more than they'll ever connect with your ability.
Yep.
And I think as leaders, myself included, I need to swallow that pill and realize
all of us do.
People need to hear our struggles, our weaknesses, and they'll connect with that. And God's grace will be on that.
Yep.
And it's not glorying in sin at all.
No. It's giving a testimony of how does God authentically work in your real life.
Yeah.
I also want to, for everybody's had church hurt. I get so tired of hearing people talk about church hurt.
Because people will run away because of how the church treated them.
I had this pastor who, and then they fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It's like, I have literally, I've known physical molestation. The things that have happened to me in church from church leaders damaged my psyche and my soul way more than any molestation I ever had. But you have to just get over it.
Yeah.
And by get over it, I'm not talking about powering through.
Explain that.
You just have to look at people and go, you are very human and what you just did to me was totally wrong.
Yeah.
But there is a God, and there are people who know him, and I'm going to keep looking until I find them.
Yeah.
And when you keep looking, there are authentic people. And I feel like there's a groundswell of people that are starting to come around.
Totally.
That you can tell your story to. You can be heard.
Yeah.
And people will love you.
Yes.
And your generation particularly has watched my generation and the next one behind me.
Yep.
And we have easy answers, and we tell you this is how it works. But my generation is so afraid to be known. Like my generation, I can just tell you as a single guy,
Yeah.
it's really hard to find other single people to hang with.
Yeah.
Or if couples are married, like a wife can bring her girlfriend along with her and her husband. But most dudes, they don't even have any vision for social life, period.
No.
Their wife is the one who makes sure that they see another male socially.
Yeah.
And she can't invite me because
Totally.
that looks weird,
Yeah.
because in Christian circles, you know, that's sure to go someplace bad.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just really like in your head coming to a place where you get past all the reasons why you can't exist in faith circles.
Yeah.
And find it's a home group,
Yeah.
find a community circle.
Yeah.
It's not about buildings.
Yeah. And I think, like you're saying, it is important to realize that there actually are leaders out there who are walking this pretty powerfully.
Oh, absolutely.
And even in our community, I've
Yep.
seen it. There's so many pastors
Yep.
who are willing to talk about the things.
There really are.
And step into it. And I would just say, you know, just from my experience, the reason that I probably, in some cases, have hurt other people who have walked through things that I didn't understand,
Yeah.
it was because of my own pain.
Yeah.
And because I didn't feel safe to be me. I never felt safe to bring this forward because, I mean, this is my career, so to speak. Right. This is my life. And there is such a burden and a pressure on leaders to be perfect. Yep. And I think we just want to encourage even the leaders out there, like, that's a burden that culture puts on you, not God. Yep. And he's inviting us right now in this precipice of time. I feel like, as you talked about the generation before and the generation now, that there was no context for that then,
right.
But now there's a great hunger for it. But now it's time for the brave to rise and begin to speak to some of this. And so I know that, I mean, we don't work in, you know, we're not tied to an organization.
Yeah.
And so if there's leaders out there, if there's people in whatever your role is that were like, man, I'm craving this, reach out to us. Yeah. We're not here just for you to hear us talk. We want to empower people into authenticity.
Yeah.
And so again, guys, this is what our heart's about. I think that we're probably right now putting words to your heart that you need to hear. And if there's something jumping in on the inside of you saying, I want that, reach out to us. That's why we're here. That's why we're going to continue to be here. And so thanks for joining us. We can't wait to talk more on our episode 3, Rawthentic Radio with Eric and Riley. We're going to switch that, I swear.
Eric and Riley. That's
Riley
how
and
it's
Eric.
going to be.
Riley and Eric, out.
Eric and Riley.
I said out.
Eric and
means
Riley.
we're done. Love y'all. Hey, thanks so much for watching our podcast.
Yeah, we know that we say a lot of things that we believe are truth. We're not trying to debate, just sharing what we've learned.
So if that's something that rings true with you as well, help us out. Hit subscribe. If not, have a great day.